Add to library. Yep. I'm gonna grab that. It looks... every glass you knock is 1 point. Can you get 3 and not get caught by your human? I love that so much. Right now, so we do story time every Tuesday around here. And then Mondays and Friday evenings, we do variety gaming as well. And right now we're playing on our Friday game. We're playing a game called Death of the Reprobate, which is a point and click adventure entirely made up of Renaissance paintings. It's very like Monty Python. It is quite raunchy, I will say. So like viewer discretion advised. But we were certainly having a good giggle over it. There was some confusion about the one guy he was working on his magnum opus, but instead it was a magnum opus. And yeah, it was there you go. Yeah, Fatangle has the clip. Like again, there is urination. a drunk man urinating in that clip. But I did not pick up on the pun of magnum opus right away. Quite funny. So that's what we're going to be playing on Friday. For the last just over a year, Mondays we've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 with our pal Adamus Prime. We have both like played D&D together like IRL, and we're doing a sort of a like buddy cop sort of vibe. So like he's a rogue, I'm a paladin. One plays by the rules, the other breaks them. That's been pretty fun as well. Oh my gosh. Our Stream Raiders battle is coming up here. I did say this was going to be our final one. So yeah, when we pick up on Friday, we will be starting with a loyalty gold chest. And then we just have one more chapter of Something Dead to read tonight. Food dinged. Sounds good. The rogue and paladin are rubbing off on each other. It's hard to tell them apart. The rogue has been learning to have a heart of gold, and the paladin has been learning to steal. That's character development, baby. So we have Fatangle out in front. Oh my gosh, and we already have another Pokemon spawn, a Delibird, you guys. Feel free to Pokecatch. All right, great job, you guys. A random reward going to Wheat Stalker. Fellow sumo wrestling enthusiast, Wheat Stalker. That's where we're probably going at the end of this chapter. We're gonna go watch some sumo. It's not Christmas yet. Not quite. Not quite. Although for our American friends, it's getting closer to American Thanksgiving, which I do feel like is the, sort of the snowball effect of like, oh, Christmas is coming. It's getting cold out there though. Has it snowed where you are? We had our first snow over the weekend. It's, it was just in the night, and it was gone by like 9 a.m., but it did happen. Turkey consumption. For us Canadians, our turkey consumption starts in October. So It's, oh, really? Takes a while for you guys to get there, hey, Fatangle? Warm overall. Okay, all right. You know, it's, we've been kind of hanging on. There's certainly, where I am in Canada, there have been plenty of years where there was full snow on the ground at Halloween and kids had to, like, put a costume over a snowsuit. So, you know, we're fortunate to get this far. You miss snow? So you are somewhere too warm to have snow. That is certainly not where I am. Eastern Canada is known to be unseasonably warm. Ooh, we have a couple of friends in Eastern Canada. They're going to be enjoying that nice weather. So where I am in Central Canada, Saskatchewan is my province, which is kind of like above North Dakota, kind of right in the middle. So we kind of get the big extremes, like in the, North Dakota is South Canada. We have said, we really get the big extremes. We will get the like, oh God, I'm not good at this, conversion. Okay. So yeah, we'll get like 40-degree heat on the hottest days of the summer. So like, what's that? 104, 105. And then we'll get to like minus 40 in the winter time, which actually is the point where Celsius and Fahrenheit intersect. And it's minus 40, the same in both. So we kind of get the like both extremes. Although I know for people who live in like the desert and some of the really hot states, saying like, oh, it gets up to 105 is like kind of a joke. Everything is relative. Finally pulled out a jacket. Yeah, it's been like light jacket sweater weather here. What is it right now? Let me see. Wow, is it really that cold? Oh my God. It's getting brisk out there. So it is -3 where I am right now. So it is below freezing. 26.6 says Google for Fahrenheit users. But no snow yet. So we're getting there. Yeah, it's true. Like having a drier heat does make a difference compared to just that like sweltering humidity. Where I am, I'm landlocked. I'm very, very far from the ocean. So definitely no humidity here. But like a humid heat, I'm just like, I'm melting. That's what I'm used to. All right, you guys. What do you reckon? Should we jump on into our final chapter of the evening? I think we should. I'm very excited. But you know what? Before we jump on, we'll roast a quick marshmallow or two in our little fireplace. For some of our newer friends, this is a very, strong debate in our channel, because we have some people like me who love a golden roasted marshmallow. In fact, they're very good for s'mores. But we have some others who fall on the more of what I would say is the charcoal end of the spectrum for their marshmallows. Ohio's a damp slice of hell in the summer. Other states are worse, but humidity is not fun. I was gonna say we have some Ohio friends. But Ohio is a state that I have not been to before. There we go. We lit it on fire. So Renfrost, you're in the burnt marshmallow end of the perspective. I mean, either way, we will eat it. Chomp, chomp, chomp. We can do the same with like hot dogs on our fire and such like. That marshmallow is now more well done than I prefer. Me too. What other things we can do? Like we can throw paper in the fire. Homework, yeah. Or we can change the color of the fire, which I always find pretty fun. There's like, I don't know, purple fire or white fire or lime green fire. There's like cotton candy. I like that one. Lots of different ones. Love our little fireplace. We'll just go with a normal fire for now. Burn the outside, use the inside melty bit for s'mores. I do love a s'more. Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks. Whoop, whoop. I love it. All right, pals. We are going to see where I'm going to leave you off for something dead this evening. Now, I have a bad reputation for leaving people on a cliffhanger with our stories, but, you know, we'll see if that's the vibe that I left you with tonight. Cliffhanger. I didn't say that. I said we'll see. But this chapter is going to be a little bit longer than some of the quick ones we were going through. Still pretty quick compared to like some of the ones we were reading in our classic lit, like North and South. But well, you'll have your answer soon, Fatangle. Let's get cozy. And let's do it. Chapter 16. Soph? Are you still there? Eve's voice snapped Sophia from her stupor. What if Winna was right? What if it was a trap? Sophia? Eve's voice was quiet, growing more uncertain. Screw it. Sophia braced herself as she gripped the key, pushing it into the lock and turning it with a sharp flick of her wrist. The lock clicked and she twisted the handle, pushing open the door. Sophia was knocked over or Eve hurled herself out of the room, smashing into her friend. They both ended up on the floor. Sophia held onto Eve more out of desperation than as an embrace. Oh God, thank you. Eve wept into Sophia's ear. Sophia couldn't let her friend go. She was still processing that Eve was alive and she wasn't hallucinating. You're wet, Eve mumbled, leaning back to inspect Sophia. She was puzzled for a moment, but it was fleeting. The joy at being saved quickly overtook any of Eve's confusion as she pulled Sophia once more for a tight embrace. What even is this place? Winna stuck her head into the dark room Eve had plunged from. Eve, she gagged and coughed before blurting, there are bodies in here. A rancid tang suddenly exploded through Sophia's senses and she coughed, finally letting go of Eve. She turned to look in the room. It was dark except for the screens. I couldn't see. Eve tried to catch her breath, a hand over her mouth to stifle her sobs. It was so dark. The flesh hung loose on the decaying corpses. One had slid out of his chair and was a lumpy pile on the floor. his knees folded under him and his jaw lolling open a fraction too wide, pulling the mushroom-colored skin so it looked like it would tear. The other body was half curled, hanging under the arm of the chair. Her loose hair obscured her face, and her arms sat limp in her lamp. Both chairs sat in front of the desk that held up a wall full of screens, at least 20. Half were fuzzy with static, gray and white zigzags streaming across the screen. A few were totally black, and others were blurry. But a few images remained focused enough for Sophia to recognize the foyer and the dining room. "What is this?" Winna repeated, a grimace plastered on her face. "I think," Sophia replied, "I think this is the research team?" She didn't dare go into the room. The thought of being locked in with 2 decaying bodies turned her blood to ice. "So it was real?" Eve whispered from behind Sophia. Turning to look at Eve, Sophia saw her friend's lip quiver and pupils completely take over her iris. "They've been dead for a long time, more than 3 days anyway. See their clothes just hang on them?" Winna pointed out, "and all the cameras watching our every move." Sophia didn't know whether finding out the study was actually a real opportunity made her feel better or worse. A cold calm had settled over Sophia as she realized Eve wasn't in a state to lead, and all 3 women melting into full-blown hysterics wouldn't help them live. She was going to have to be brave and disassociate from the fear that hovered in the peripheries of her mind. It was a nice setup. We would have made so much money. She took a breath before continuing. But it doesn't matter what happened to them, or Dr. Lin, or whoever is running this. We have to find a way out, or a way to survive. Sophia wasn't going to bother asking Eve how she got into the observation room. It didn't matter. "Oh!" Winna squealed, suddenly making Eve and Sophia jump and wildly look around. "What?" hissed Sophia. "Our phones! There! It's a bin in the desk!" Winna was jumping up and down like a child in the doorway. She didn't move to go in, but her face lit up with renewed hope. "We can call for help." Sophia pushed herself and headed for the door, pausing on the threshold. "Go grab them! What are you waiting for?" Winna urged. One of the corpses to blink their milky eyes, a finger to twitch, the door to slam behind her. But the phones were right there. Sophia took a breath and then coughed as the putrid air raced through her lungs and over her tongue. "Don't let the door close." She glanced at Winna, who nodded solemnly. Eve was still on the floor, looking at nothing and muttering to herself. Trying not to breathe too deeply, she took 2 careful steps into the room. It felt painfully slow because her mind was screaming at her to run in the other direction. As she neared the woman who was slouched over in her chair, Sophia's skin prickled. The static light from monitors sent flickering shadows skittering across the walls, and both corpses looked deflated, their skin sagging around the bones. She leaned over the chair, holding her breath, and trying not to let her sweater escape or scrape the paper skin off the researcher. Her fingers closed on the rim of the bin, and she dragged it towards herself. A monitor beside her flickered off and then back on, momentarily blinding her. She blinked and turned towards it, and her heart thudded in her chest. The grinning man was in the kitchen, staring straight at her. The monitor flicked off again. Sophia couldn't breathe. Her lungs were paralyzed. It flicked back on. He was directly in front of the camera now, head tilted to the side as his bottomless eyes bored into her. Suddenly her lungs snapped to life, dragging in air as if they were starving, and she tightened her grip on the bin. Her body was backing up, pulling her toward the door before her brain could catch up because her eyes were still focused on the grinning man caught in his sticky web. She heard herself screaming for Winna to close the door and to lock it. She felt her back hit the wall, yet she still had to get farther away, so she pushed herself and she was in a corner farther down the hallway. She stood, eyes wide, surveying both directions. It was going to get her, devour her with its hungry eyes and too wide grin. Sophia! Winna was in front of her, kneeling and grabbing her shoulders, concern ringing in her voice. Eve scrambled beside Sophia and gave her a hug. What was it? What did you see? Sophia shook her head, trying to calm her breathing down. All her courage from minutes ago evaporated. She was grateful for Eve's presence, even if her friend was just as freaked out as she was. The grinning man, she whispered. He saw me through the screen. The camera doesn't go both ways, don't worry. He might have just been intrigued by the camera, Winna said, taking the bin from her and rummaging around until she found her phone. Oh no, she muttered. 5% left and no service. The rest of these are much better. We should turn some off so when we do have service we can call for help. Her breathing slowed. Sophia was able to calm her mind enough to think. The kitchen is really close to the basement stairs, she mentioned. We could try to go upstairs, but I have a bad feeling that thing might be there. Are you kidding me? Winna's voice shook and she threw her arms around and gestured to their surroundings. Staying in the creepy basement out of this creepy place because you have a feeling? You haven't seen him, you don't know, Sophia argued, losing patience. I know. We have a better chance of getting out if we aren't in the basement, Winna countered. Stop, both of you. Eve cut in, but her voice shook. She wiped her tears on her arm. Sophia noticed the cut from the garage had grown worse and was crusted with black ichor. Tiny but angry black veins shattered out from the center, and the skin around was bruised dark purple. Eve didn't seem to notice the wound anymore. Her words were slow, and she struggled to maintain control of herself. Sophia saw Eve's hands shaking as she said, Arguing is pointless. You both know that, so take a breath and realize we're on the same team here. I didn't spend the night in that dark room with dead people for us to break down now. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut and nodded. Eve seemed back to be old self, at least a little bit. She saw the truth in Eve's statement immediately and felt silly for arguing, just wasted time. She sighed. I'm sorry, Winna. This place has me going crazy. It's okay, I just want to leave, Winna replied. From the corner of her eye, Sophia saw a shadow move down the corridor by the mouth of the stairway. She jerked her head in the direction to get a closer look, but there was nothing there. Both Eve and Winna jumped at Sophia's sudden movement, but said nothing. Upstairs, then, and see if a door is suddenly unlocked or a window is breakable? Sophia asked, unnerved by the shadow. She'd have sworn it was another woman. Winna offered Sophia and Eve her hands and hauled them up. Sophia set her shoulders and balled her hands into fists. They had their phones. They were getting out. A stair groaned, causing all three women to look toward the center. They shifted closer together. There were no heavy footfalls. Another stair creaked, closer to the bottom this time. Silence. Sophia didn't want to see what it was. She was too scared to look through the mirror to the reflection of the stairs. Maybe not that way, she whispered. Winna and Eve nodded in agreement. There was a door slightly to the right of the woman they had shuffled to, but they found it was locked. No other noise came from the direction of the stairs. Whatever it was had stopped approaching and was waiting. There was another door across the hall, nearby the observation room. Sophia had no intention of moving down the hallway closer to the bottom of the stairs, and luckily it seemed, neither did the other two. Winna nodded her head down the hallway straight ahead of them. There were 3 other doors they could see. Trying to be both silent and speedy, the 3 moved as a unit toward the far end of the hallway. They ignored another path that jutted off and twisted out of view. The doors on either side of them proved to be locked, but luckily the one straight ahead of them was unlocked. They slid inside and gently closed the door. Sophia didn't take her hand off the knob until she felt it latch. Now they were in the pitch-black room. For what had seemed like a good idea 2 minutes ago, seemed silly as the hair on the back of their necks stood on end. How convenient that there was an unlocked door for them to hide behind. All three huddled together at the door, not moving any farther into the space. "I can't find a lock," she breathed loud enough only for her companions to hear. "I hate to turn on the light, but we need to find something to prop under the handle." "I'll look for a light switch," Eve whispered back and moved away from the others. A moment later, an almost imperceptible buzz of electricity filled the room, and two dim orange lights in the center of the room flickered to life. It was another library. This one was less polished and scholarly than the first one. This was full of tomes and stale air. The light blanketed the room, making everything appear like it was a sepia photo, aged and full of memories. Books weren't aligned neatly on the shelves. Instead, they were stacked like someone had rummaged through and shoved them wherever they see fit. There was a rectangular wooden table running the length of the room with matching wooden chairs neatly pushed in. Part of the table gleamed with polish, but the majority was dull or scratched. There was what could have been a cute little reading nook with small table and comfy-looking armchairs, but to Sophia it seemed more claustrophobic and inescapable if something had cornered her there. Winna grabbed a nearby chair and secured it under the knob. There was a barrel bolt near the top of the door that Sophia had missed. Winna made sure to slide the bolt into place. After she was sure the door would hold, Sophia let go of the handle and took a few steps into the room. The lack of cobwebs was odd, especially since they were in a basement. A thick layer of dust coated everything, emphasizing how untouched the room had been until their intrusion. Sophia's damp clothes clung to her body, making her cold and uncomfortable. Shivering, she looked around for something that would offer her warmth. A blanket was folded neatly on an armchair in the nook. She didn't care that it was filled with moth-eaten holes. She shook it out, fanning away the plume of dust that filled the air, and wrapped it around it herself. Winna and Eve each took a blanket from the basket between the chairs. Like Sophia's, the blankets were a thin flannel material. They'd been rolled and stored neatly, and they didn't seem to have collected as much dust. "More books, hey?" Eve murmured. "These don't look as impressive, though. No first editions. Only cracked spines and yellow pages." "And newspapers," Winna added. She was moving them in her hand. A pile was haphazardly stacked on the table in front of her. "Listen to this." Her voice took on a conspiratorial tone as she inspected the front page. "Apparently, there were quite a few accidents when this place was being built." Both Eve and Sophia moved closer together to look over Winna's shoulders as she read aloud. "Mortoak Manor, long anticipated to wow guests when it finally opens to the public, will see more setbacks in the construction phase. Terrible accidents on site have led to multiple workers' deaths. This is the third tragedy associated with the building of the large estate. The second was in the early stages when 2 crewmen went missing and later found hanging from the structural beams. The first tragic event occurred during the excavation for the basement. 4 workers ended up experiencing accidents and passing away from injuries. The construction incidents don't include the 2 surveyors that went missing during the initial planning phase of the project when scouting the location. The estate truly seems to be cursed." "Spooky," Eve muttered. Sophia's eyes were glued to the accompanying photograph. Was the grinning man in the photo, just behind the ground floor windows? "Here's another." Eve picked up the next in the pile, reading the headline, "Future site of Grand Mountain Resort has hauntingly bad luck." The photograph showed the estate with a large hole in the ground. It was a few months earlier than the paper Winna held. There was no construction underway yet. Eve scanned the article, picking out sentences to recite. "A number of people sent to survey the land went missing. Local medium says there's a deep and devouring restlessness permeating the site. An accident with a machine used to clear the area of trees resulted in several deaths. Crewman walks off the job claiming to have seen a ghost." Bunch of doom and gloom. No details, though, just vague references to terrible events. Sounds like this place was maybe just bad to begin with. Eve scratched at the scab, pulling it free to allow for a trickle of black syrup to bead and run down her arm. They hadn't had a chance to stop and clean the weeping wound. Eve, every time I see that, it looks worse. Sophia gestured to her friend's arm. They hadn't had a chance to stop and clean the weeping wound. Obviously, but what are we going to do about it here? Nothing, so I just power through. There is something in it I can't get out. I think me digging around the cut will make it worse. I can feel it spreading up my arm, too. Let's see. Sophia reached out, taking Eve's arm. Her voice gentle. Eve was right. There was a hard lump in the middle, a core. Eve winced when Sophia gingerly pushed the skin on either side of it. A mediclinic will get that dealt with in a jiff. She knew her smile was thin as she tried to reassure her friend. She let Eve take her arm back. Eve sat quietly, massaging her forearm and then shoulder. What happened when you were missing? Winna narrowed her eyes towards Eve's arm. When you were in the room with the bodies, what happened? Eve opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again before finally shrugging and responding. I honestly don't know. I woke up and immediately started banging on the door. I was so scared. I don't remember anything else. You heard me pretty soon after. You think that they did something to my arm during that time? I don't know. Winna answered, sizing up the wound. It's all just weird timing. Now we're here in the basement, trapped, and your arm is dripping green mucus. Sophia didn't like the accusatory tone Winna used. Hey, she interrupted. Could have been any of us. It's good that we found you, Eve. An old garage has tons of chemicals and stuff. Whatever was on the garage window must have gotten in your arm. Eve made a face. Maybe. When I first got cut, it was definitely when all the itchiness and pus started, but Winna's right. It doesn't seem like run-of-the-mill infection that a doctor can deal with. She glanced at Winna, then back to Sophia. I'm me, though, not a creature like in The Thing. She paused, considering before continuing. I mean, I guess that is what anyone would say in this situation, but I still feel like me, except for the weird skin thing. Winna evaluated Eve's words, her expression still skeptical. Sophia understood the impulse to immediately distrust anything in this place, but her gratitude at having Eve back outweighed the alternative. At least, Winna seemed satisfied with Eve's story, or she had realized they had no choice but to take her story at face value. Winna instead busied herself with wandering around the room, inspecting the shelves. She stopped and rubbed off some of the dust from the spine of a thin hardcover. What year was that paper from again? She asked. Sophia checked the date of Winna's discarded newspaper. July 1902. I thought so. This is the same year on it. Winna slid the book out and blew away more dust that was trapped in all the crevices. It looks like a journal. It says this belongs to Beau Carter. This entry is ominous. Winna grimaced as she skinned the first page. I assume it's his family. That's the reason the town we drove through is Carterton. He seemed to be complaining about how he should have listened to the people around here about the forest. What about the forest? Sophia set the paper down. Well, his writing is difficult to read. He says about that they told him the forest was evil, that it was hungry, and there was nothing living in it. They said it was dead. They told him not to build here. Winna squinted as she flipped pages, summarizing some of the rambling. Hungry? That's such an odd way to describe a physical place. But I feel it, Sophia responded. Yeah, evil is right, Eve grumbled. He thought, Winna continued, flipping through the pages, that they were just upset that it would draw lots of people to the more remote area. The quiet folk living in nearby towns didn't want to have to deal with all the traffic. He thought they were trying to talk him out of a great business opportunity. How would he not feel the wrongness of this place and understand? Sophia asked. Well, I didn't, Eve replied. I only thought about that bucket load of cash that was going to come my way. Winnie ignored them, reading on. He had a partner, Mr. Ronald Oak. He writes that in the beginning, Ronald was the only one that saw reason and urged him forward with the endeavor. In this entry, though, Mr. Carter seems to have had a bad falling out with his partner. And then Ronald pulled out his share of the investment. Both seem really bitter about the whole thing. He writes about how old Ron betrayed him. Sophia held another paper in her hand, pity welling in her heart as she read. She asked, Did he write that the reason Ronald pulled out his investment is that his 2 young children went missing on the property? It would be around October 1902. Bo writes nothing of that, Winna responded, flipping back through some pages to be sure. Weird. You'd think that would leave an impression. Seemed Ronald has brought his kids with him on a day trip to oversee some of the building stages, and they vanished. Their nanny was frantic and swears she took her eyes off them only for a second to pick up some toys. Sophia grimaced. Ronald let her go after that, and I think his wife left him, she said. And then he washed his hands of this place. Or at least he tried to. Wait, Eve interrupted. Ronald Oak was found dead the next year. Eve had pushed aside a few papers and uncovered the unfortunate headline. The body of Ronald Oak was discovered wedged in a thicket outside the newly completed Mortoak Manor. Witness reports claim the body was discovered in the early hours of the morning by a gardener. Mr. Oak's body had been contorted at odd angles with some broken bones and other physical damage sustained. Police have refrained from commenting as the investigation is ongoing. Winna had taken out another journal and is flipping through the pages. Yes, it was April 1903. Bo was very upset about it. Ronald had been missing for a few months prior. With the thawing, he seems to be quite traumatized about the state of the body. He writes that he thinks the gardener did it because the body had never been there before that morning. Sophia joined Eve in pushing around the newspapers, trying to see if any article would jump out to them. Whoa! Winna looked at the other 2 from over the pages. Bo said the papers didn't add that Ronald's clothing was beyond disgusting, like he'd been living in them for months. They were ripped and torn, too. And, she emphasized, he was very skinny, like he was starving. He thinks that the whole time Ronald was living in the basement, hiding or being held captive away from search and rescue. He thought either that or he'd been living wild in the forest. Either way, he thought Ronald had been on the grounds the whole time. Was Bo Carter not living here at the time? Sophia asked. Would he have noticed someone creeping around his house? If you didn't want to be found, I bet you could easily creep around this place, Eve countered. Sophia shrugged, seeing her friend's point. Bo was living here with his wife and baby daughter. He never mentions their names. He only called his wife, my love, and his baby, the babe. I think Ronald's death pushed him a little bit into crazy town because the entries after are nonsensical. He rants about objects mysteriously moving on their own, his wife and daughter not being themselves. Think it was this house that drove him into madness in addition to all the horrible stuff? Sophia queried. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Winna nodded. These later entries are yucky to read. He isn't coherent. Ramblings about a shadowed figure following him. He claims he cannot leave the house and regrets clearing out the area and building the place. He says there's nothing he can do. That it would devour his soul. He talks about, at least he was able to save his family. In the last entry, he plans to burn it to the ground. That was Christmas 1903. Well, that didn't happen. Sophia looked around, glancing toward the door. Everything was quiet in the hallway. Oh no. Eve frowned as she pointed to a newspaper. Millionaire philanthropist Beauregard Carter murders his wife, child, household staff, and himself. He doesn't even mention planning that in his journal. Winna looked sick. Look, here, there's a picture of them all. They looked really happy. His wife was super pretty. She examined the picture before reading on. It says here the bodies of Louisa and baby Lily were discovered in the basement on New Year's Day, 1904. They were in a shrine with candles that had burned to nothing. Eve scanned the page. Oh, God. The time they were found, the remains had been deceased for around a month. The only reason they were discovered was that Beau had not been heard from for a while, and he usually threw a lavish New Year's Eve party. Local law enforcement came to the manor and found his body hanging in the foyer. There was no evidence of anyone else living on the premises, so they started searching the house. He left a note claiming he didn't have a choice and it was his only escape. The paper doesn't include the other details he wrote in the note, only that they were the ramblings of a lunatic. All three were buried somewhere on the estate. Grim, noted Winna. She slid the journals back onto the shelf. So, Sophia stated, this place doesn't have a great track record, but clearly not everyone who steps foot on the manor's grounds dies. So we find a way out, Winna responded. Eve spoke up. Well, today was the last day we were supposed to be here. Daniel is expecting me back tomorrow. If we don't show up, he'll try calling. I'm sure we can last until then. He'll send help. Sophia hadn't even thought Daniel knew enough to contact a rescue crew. Could work. Or maybe it would just add more numbers to the death toll. She pursed her lips, angry at even considering something that squashed that bit of hope. We just have to make sure to stay alive long enough for that to happen, she said. End of chapter 16. See, not too bad of a cliffhanger. We got some more information about the house and its history. And we know that there is a timeline now, right? Someone... so Eve's boyfriend on the outside, like, he's gonna let them know. If Eve doesn't show up the next day, he's gonna start checking to see what's gonna go wrong. He's gonna send some investigation. I know, Fatangle. I saw that Psyduck and I was like, I want it. I want it. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me and enjoying our read courtesy of Andrea Mackenzie. I'm really having a great time reading the story, and I hope you guys are having a great time along with me. A big thank you to Shakespeare's Cat and Renfrost for our raids tonight. Very kind of you to come by and listen to our stories. Next little bit ahead of what we're looking forward to. Playing Death of the Reprobate on Friday. I'm not sure if we'll finish it or not, question mark. We got like 3 out of 7 objectives completed last time, so maybe we'll finish it on the next stream, or maybe we'll have one more week of that. For our next story time, so next stream will be Friday, 9:30 Eastern, now that daylight savings time has happened. Where I live doesn't observe daylight savings time, so I'm always really confused. 9:30 Eastern. What is it, 6:30 Pacific? Is that what it is now? So we'll be playing Death of the Reprobate. And then for our... Adam and I will be back doing Baldur's Gate on Monday. We'll be getting into some trouble. We're going to be hunting down serial killer, I think, is kind of our plan next time. So we'll see how that goes. And then if for the conclusion of Something Dead, we have our story time on Tuesdays. And we will be reading, 7:30 Eastern. 4:30 Pacific, is that correct? Absolutely love to find you live again. That's so sweet, Renfrost. I definitely want to come by and check out some of your streams and projects as well. It's Goldberry Fairy, thank you so much. That's really kind of you to say. Thank you for coming to hang out with us tonight and enjoy our stories. We'll be finishing Something Dead next week. And so we'll have, for those who are in our Discord, we'll have a poll up for our next reads. So normally what we do is a warm-up with some children's classic lit, and then we sort of transfer over to an adult story. So we'll have a poll up for what we're going to read. But after next week, I'm going to be taking some vacation time. So we'll be picking back up on our regular scheduled programming in December. Kebo, how are you doing? Good to see you. Kebo, another reading streamer. Definitely come say hi to him. How are you doing? Were you on earlier today? I thought I saw a notey while I was like doing spreadsheets earlier. Busy bee with school. It is that time of the year. Hey, I know for anyone who's doing, doing school, like, it's midterms, it's coming up on projects, like it's busy. So definitely appreciate you coming to hang out tonight. And you were doing some Twitch time. What were you reading tonight? What were you reading, if so? So yeah, I guess that's kind of like the next week ahead for what we're doing. But very excited for the conclusion of Something Dead next week. So I think we are going to be reading 9 chapters next week. Quite a few. But I'm looking forward to it. Dean Koon's Velocity. Ooh, lovely. I was saying, is Something Dead something I wrote? So it isn't, but it's a local author who has written her debut novel, a self-published horror, and she gave us permission to read it on stream, which was really, really sweet of her. So yeah, definitely. And our moderator extraordinaire, Thistle K, did design the cover art as well. Such a badass cover. Here, I will show it off. So there's, this is the cover of Something Dead. Fatangle put the link in there. It is through Kindle Direct Publishing. So if you're wanting a copy for yourself, it is available as an ebook, as well as you can get this beautiful cover in hard or soft cover. Feel free to check it out. It was very, very kind of her to give us permission. This is sort of, normally we stick in the like classic lit zones. This is actually our first contemporary read. So kind of an exciting time. Something/nothing. Very good. I love that. You guys what's going to be our final Pokemon of the night is a Spearow. Feel free to Pokecatch. If you have never played PCG before and you'd like to start, you can go ! Pokestart and you'll be assigned a random starter and given a handful of Pokeballs to get yourself started. Yeah. I think that's all of the good things that I need to remember to say. You got a Bulbasaur. Nice. Pokemon number 1. Yes, Pokehelp, that's all the commands. So then if you go ! Pokecatch, you'll have a chance. You'll throw one of your Pokeballs at the Spearow here. Always nice to get one of the classic like 150s, right? My first generation of Pokemon. Oh, good luck, Runfrost. On your very first Pokecatch. So Fatango listed all the commands for playing the game, but for any Pokemon stream that has PCG running, a Pokemon will spawn every 15 minutes, and you will actually accumulate Poke Dollars just for like being active in chat, and so then you can like buy more Pokeballs when you run out and stuff like that. You can get a daily reward by using the Poke Daily in the Discord. Yes, you got it. Congratulations, Fatangle and Renfrost. First Pokemon caught. You never forget your first. You can even catch shinies. We have had a handful of shinies caught in stream before. So on my channel, or any of the channels that go in there, then if you have the the widget for PCG, you can see your inventory, like how much gold or how many Pokemon you have, if you need to buy more Pokeballs or anything like that. It's just like in the widget on the channels. Fatangle is nuts, and his Pokedex is like almost filled out. He's at like 95% of spawnable Pokemon caught. Oh my god, almost 98%. You're amazing. So, you guys, a little bit of a discussion about where we're going to raid. Weedstalker and I were enthusing very much at the start of stream because Weedstalker got me back in, I guess, but introduced me into sumo wrestling, which I first got to see on a visit to Japan years ago. And just on the TV, I didn't get to go to an actual match. I wish, but I was like transfixed by this on TV. And Weedstalker came in one day and was like, "Yeah, I've been watching lots of sumo. I'm like obsessed." And I was like, "Where are you watching it?" And the rest is history. So every other month there is a 2-week-long sumo tournament that is bopping on Twitch every night for those 2 weeks. And so we are going to give a raid to Midnight Sumo. To check out some matches. It is super helpful community because the sport is so rich with tradition. Everyone is really, really helpful to explain if you have any questions. And it's just a great place to hang out. They play lots of like old commercials and stuff like that during the broadcast as well. So everybody just gets to like kind of vibe out and enjoy. Sumo wrestling is like half Shinto tradition of like religious ritual / sport of intense size and grappling. And it's a really, really engaging and snappy matches. So I encourage you to come along with me on my raid and check out sumo for the first time. All right, you guys, as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Stay safe. Know how much I appreciate you being here. And take care. Much love. Have a great rest of your night, you guys. Hey, Jerome. We are heading out. I'm so sorry. But take care, you guys. Much love. I will see you guys on Friday for Death of the Reprobate.